Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet, the go-to podcast for parents with multiple kids, especially those with twins, triplets, or more, who are navigating the maze of modern family life and personal finance. Whether you're overwhelmed by education or retirement planning, parenting dilemmas, career transitions, or trying to define your purpose and plan, we're here to guide you with empathy, encouragement, and expertise. Hosted by Paul Fenner, founder of Tama Capital, a certified financial planner and parent to 4 kids, including a set of triplets. Our podcast is your ally in the quest for financial peace of mind, proving that money matters, but family comes first. Subscribe now and join our community of empowered parents at tamacapital.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Tama may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What does comprehensive financial planning even mean? At Tama Capital, it means a family office where lifestyle planning such as retirement, college, portfolio management, and tax prep and planning are all under one umbrella. But it goes beyond numbers. We focus as much on the emotional side of financial planning as we do on the financial side. We get you. We understand your challenges of building a family, business or career, and a healthy life. We are devoted to wealth planning for families like yours because we are you. Learn how our family can help your family by visiting tamacapital.com. Have you ever wondered why you buy what you buy? There's so many reasons under the surface for our purchases, from social status to taking care of our future selves to keeping up with others. Today, I have the perfect guest to help us break down our spending thoughts. Dr. Michael Barbera is an associate professor of marketing at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Mike and I explore the fascinating world of Costco therapy and the deeper psychological benefits and tactics of our spending. Mike and I delve into what truly drives us to fill our carts, not just at Costco, but at big box stores and everywhere in between, and how the thrill of discovery and exclusivity and even our future selves influence the decisions we make every time we shop. You'll also hear us talk about how brands use psychological tactics like think rotating aisles, shiny new objects, and exclusive memberships to keep us coming back for more. Our conversation covers everything from customer loyalty to subscription traps and the emotional calculus behind savings, and I'm using that word in air quotes, to the powerful role social media plays in our urges to keep up with the Joneses. Please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Michael Barbera. All right, well, Dr. Michael Barbera, welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast.
Paul, pleasure's all mine.
So we'll get into your background. You're an associate professor of marketing at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, which North Carolina holds a special place in my heart because I lived there multiple times and I have family and friends that still live down there. So if it wasn't for a set of triplets, I would probably still be there and not back in Michigan. So,
well, you're welcome here anytime.
So you wrote this, you were quoted in this fascinating article that I came across, and I'm not even sure how I found it, on what is Costco therapy. And that thing really resonated for me because I am a kind of, I guess, a diehard Costco shopper. As the audience knows by now, I have a soon-to-be set of 15-year-old triplets and a soon-to-be 13-year-old. And so we have been living on Costco for almost the last 15 years. And so full disclosure, I always like to let people know positions that we hold. So I personally own Costco, and the families I work with at Tama own Costco in their portfolios as well. So no recommendation to buy or hold Costco, but I always like to get those disclosures out. So one of the interesting things that I think I liked about the article was how it laid out, like, what is Costco therapy and how does it differ from maybe like other traditional types of retail therapy? So I think if we could start there and kind of have you walk us through like what that means, and then we'll see where the conversation goes.
It really starts back more at retail therapy at 35,000 feet. And what that looks like is us as humans, we like to have stuff, get stuff, use stuff, share stuff, but we don't like to buy stuff. So before we even talk about Costco therapy and retail therapy, it's what is it that we are actually buying? At a very high level, there's two types of things we can buy. We can buy utilitarian items or experiences or experiential items. A utilitarian item is something that sustains life. So if I was to ask all the listeners, what is something that you purchased in the previous 30 days that sustains life? Meaning that you swiped that credit card, you handed over that cash, or you signed that check. If you did not buy that item, would you not be alive today to talk about it? For the significant majority of people, that purchase does not exist. For a select few, maybe it's a healthcare bill, prescription medication. But then, Paul, you might argue and say, Michael, I paid my mortgage. I put a roof over my family. You're not wrong. That is shelter. But we choose to have the 3-bedroom house with a fenced-in backyard over, say, the small apartment or the studio, the efficiency. I'm chatting with you from home today. I'm in my office studio. It's a small spare bedroom. We can all fit in here. We can all live in here. We can have some bunk beds, sleeping bags. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be experiential, but we can survive. So we're buying things that make us feel good. Anything that would not be utilitarian would be experiential. So we go to Costco to buy, groceries, subsistence. We're feeding our families to survive. But do we need a 34 pack of Hot Pockets and a 16 pack of snacks or a gross of whatever from the freezer section to survive? No, we do not. So retail therapy makes us feel good based upon what we might find. We have something new in our lives. It's a shiny new object. Whether that something new is a cheeseburger we default to, shake, or our favorite coffee shop, or maybe even find something unknown at Costco, it's the new shiny object in our lives that kind of distracts us from the everyday stressors or anxiety of what might be, competing with our overall happiness. But then where Costco comes in, and when I say Costco, I'm saying it's synonymous with BJ's, Sam's Club, any other big box store that has a membership. Where we get our Costco, Sam's Club, or BJ's therapy is because we have now this sunk cost where we've already paid our annual membership. So it's like, well, I already paid to go. I might as well go there. So when we go, it's not the same items in the same aisles every time we go. Some things are staples, but items typically have a shelf life, no pun intended to the industry. Items will be rotated in and out. And it's the unknown item or the safe uncertainty that we trust Costco to provide us with things that are new that we may not have seen previously.
So there's two threads I want to pull on there. I want to go back to how you were defining utilitarian versus experience, because I think most people would say when I think of experience, I think of taking that vacation or trip or doing something fun with my kids, not necessarily like how you just laid it out or defined it.
Well, it's like, let's say you go to any grocery store and you have your shopping list. Well, our shopping list doesn't consist of, okay, I need 80 grams of protein for the next 3 days. I'm making these numbers up. 80 grams of protein to survive. I need 64 grams of carbohydrates and this much sodium. Obviously not a nutritionist. But we're not going with the list of nutrients that we need. We're going with the list of things that we want to cook because those meals, the cooking experiences, or how they taste provide us joy.
So that's good. So then on going back to how Costco does things, which is kind of frustrating on one hand because you would like to go in every time and expect to be able to find what you bought last time, only to find out, no, it's not there anymore. So obviously there's a design consumer psychological element to that and why they do that, right? Because obviously it keeps people coming back in, even though they may not necessarily need to come back in.
Most of the items that you would find in a big box store are generally going to be there each time you go. If you're looking for chicken breasts, pork chops, red meats, you're looking
Toilet
for
paper.
produce, yeah, toilet paper, those items are going to be there. But then as you journey through the aisles, you might come across new items that weren't there previously. That's both good for the consumer, it's both good for the brand. It's allowing consumers to experience new items or to allow them to journey down different aisles. Every aisle is going to rotate or should rotate something different. That way, so if we know that aisle 16 always has the same 15 items, we're probably not going to go down aisle 16. But it's the potential, the unknown of what we might find that, well, okay, maybe I will rotate all these aisles just in case, or we get to the produce or the cold stuff last, so we can take our time journeying through the store.
And so going back to the article and kind of the initial question I asked is there a difference between what you would define as Costco therapy and I guess traditional or retail therapy?
It would be sort of the same if I had to define them differently. It wouldn't so much be Costco compared to retail, but it'll be big box compared to retail. Whereas it's that sunk cost where we already paid that membership fee up front. So therefore we feel like we have exclusive access. Now, if we were to ask all the listeners in the podcast or the viewers, do you prefer to have inclusive experiences or do you have exclusive experiences? The socially acceptable answer is, well, inclusive experiences. But we as consumers prefer to have those exclusive experiences. We have different tiers of Costco Club. We have gold status at Starbucks, platinum status at Delta Airlines, admiral status at American Airlines. And so we as consumers like to be treated exclusively by brands. So we socially will share that inclusive is the way to go. However, we prefer to have those inclusive experiences. So by having a membership somewhere, whether you call it a membership or something else, you feel like you're a part of a club, no pun intended, but you're part of a special group of people and you get access to this one place that most other people cannot shop.
That's interesting because I know I live here in Metro Detroit now, and it's a huge Delta hub. Like people would wear their Delta badges, like their status level, as like a badge of honor, like going through the airport. And so that's a real thing. That's like showing people like, hey, I'm a part of this exclusive club.
Absolutely, because it takes effort, time, money, and resources to earn that status. Maybe not so much at Costco, but other places that have loyalty or rewards programs. In order to achieve that gold, silver, platinum, or whatever status you're trying to achieve, you must invest time, money, or resources. What that looks like is that you're continuously going to that brand, sharing the money, and the brand's rewarding you with that title. So we feel good. Ooh, I got gold status. I feel sure. I feel good. I get the park in a special parking space at Hilton because I'm a diamond member. And those are there because we as consumers like to achieve those items. I would recommend that most brands give consumers a small, easy to achieve mission in order to spend more money at their brand over the course of their lifetime.
That's interesting because I know another one that you mentioned too is I don't drink Starbucks, but my wife certainly does, and my kids drink the drinks. And I swear, I track this number only because on one hand it's fascinating, and on the other hand it's just downright scary. Is like we typically as a family spend $2,500 to $3,000 at Starbucks every year. And
but that's by design. That's what Starbucks wants. So in marketing and strategy, we call this customer lifetime value. And customer lifetime value is how much money is the customer willing to spend on this product or with this brand over the course of their lifetime. So if I was to say, Paul, welcome to Mike's Coffee Shop. Here is the latte you ordered. That's going to be $8,000 and you get free coffee for the next 7 years. Yes or no?
Ooh, probably yes, because if I just do the math real quick, based on what I spend, I could probably do that.
You're probably saying yes because you just did the math out loud. So you verbally know, like, okay, this is how much I actually spent. It might actually be a good deal. Most people would say no to that, like, oh, $8,000, you have lost your mind. That's ridiculous. But it's designed as, well, $8,000 is a lot of money, but $5 a day is quite easy. But if we break it down, let's say the coffee costs $5. Spoiler, your coffee probably costs more than $5. But for easy math, we'll say $5 for coffee. We go to our favorite coffee shop Monday through Friday. So 5 visits, 5 days. Our weekly budget is $25. Let's say we have 2 weeks for vacation. So we go to our favorite coffee shop 50 weeks per year. 50 multiplied by 25 is $1,250 is our annual coffee budget. But over the course of 7 years, that would be $8,750. So $8,000 is actually a $750 savings. But most customers see it as $8,000 is too taxing. It's too high. It's unattainable. Oh, but $5 a day, I could easily do that. It's just like when we go to Costco, Sam's, or BJ. We walk in the front door, we scan our exclusive ID card, we have exclusive access. The bouncer has let us into the club. Now we see a wall of these beautiful 60, 70, 80, and even 100-inch TVs that are $5,000, $4,000, $1,000. They're some of the most expensive items you can purchase. And therefore, what Costco is doing is using a behavioral concept called anchoring. They're putting the more expensive items in the front so that everything else beyond that front door appears to be lower cost or more reasonable or economical.
So is that one reason why subscription-based products are so, I'd say popular, but popular with the companies that are putting those out? Because I've read that there's a lot of consumers don't know that they're still signed up for a subscription service that they never use. There's companies out there like Rocket Money that will go through your spending and see like, hey, did you know you have these 8 or 9 different subscriptions? Do you use them? Should we cancel them? And then they take a cut of what they potentially save you.
Subscriptions are a great source of revenue for the business because they allow the business to have a larger customer lifetime value. So let's pick on like a gym membership. Let's say it's January 1st. Our New Year's resolution is to lose 60 pounds in January. Not going to happen, right? Unattainable goal. But we join 2 gyms. We change our diet. And so now by January 15th, 16th, 17th, we're going to the gym less and less and less. By February, we're like, okay, I got other things going on. I can't sustain that. By March, we don't really go anymore. But if we had to go to the gym in person and swipe our credit card or hand over cash, we're probably not going to go and the membership will just lapse and it's over with. But if it's on a subscription or it charges our credit card or debits our account automatically or an ACH, what's likely to happen is, well, March 1st comes around, I really want to be in shape. Beach season's coming up. I want that beach body. I'm going to go next week. April 1st, I'm going to go next week. May 1st, I'm going to go Saturday. But we keep staying subscribed because it's less effort to unsubscribe, and we're buying based upon who we are tomorrow. So there's only one thing that all the listeners get from me bothering them on this podcast. I want it to be this one thing. Us as consumers, we make decisions based upon who we are today and who we want to be tomorrow. So in that gym example, or that fitness example, we are someone who we feel out of shape or we feel unhealthy, but we want to be the person that we see in photos and videos or on social media or even out in public. We want to be the other person who feels healthier, looks healthier, or has more confidence.
So that's really interesting because what you're talking about is your future self and how spending aligns with, or how do you align spending with your current self today and your future self tomorrow?
I like how you put it towards spending. Most consumers would not frame it as spending. They would frame it as the experience of what they get out of it emotionally. So we may make decisions and we may claim that decisions or self-report that decisions are made economically. Most decisions are made based upon emotion. So let's pick on that subscription model. And you might look at, say, a Costco membership the same way or a Sam's Club membership. There's going to be different tiers of membership, whether it's Sam's Club, Costco, BJ's, or somewhere else. If you're looking at a software subscription, there's going to be multiple levels of subscriptions. Typically, there's going to be 3 levels of subscriptions, more than likely. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. But most people who work in behavioral science would recommend 3. 3 is a psychologically satisfying number. If I said there's two reasons why you want to listen to Paul's podcast. One, two. Okay, I need some closure. But if I said there's four reasons to listen to Paul, one, two, three, four, squirrel, distraction. What time is it? Oh, I need a new watch, and we're no longer paying attention. It's too taxing. It's too overwhelming. It's cognitive overload. But three is okay. Three is appealing. Three is an easy number. And the way typically the three are designed is really designed in one of two ways, using anchoring or using the decoy effect. When they're using anchoring, the third option is typically the highest, most expensive option to make number two look reasonable. So how this is done is option number one has everything the customer needs. Option number two has everything the customer wants. Notice want comes over need. Mm-hmm. And then number three has everything in the kitchen sink, and the price reflects that. So therefore, number three makes number two look reasonable. Here's the example I'll give. Let's say you're listening to this podcast and you're like, to an end, you're like, thank goodness Mike finally shut up, I can get out of here. You had a stressful time listening to Mike and Paul. Now you want a glass of wine. So you go to your local grocery store and there's two bottles of wine on the shelf. One costs $9, the other one costs $19. Which would you buy for yourself? More than likely, you'd be like, oh, it's just me. The $9 bottle is just fine. But if I asked you, now, Paul invited you over for dinner, which bottle would you buy? More than likely, they would buy the $19 bottle of wine because we don't want to be the cheap friend. So it's not socially acceptable to bring the $9 bottle of wine. So based upon how we're using the product also changes our decision-making process. So 9 and 19, we choose the 9 for ourselves. But if there was three bottles on the shelf, $9, $19, and $99, and if we were to buy it for ourselves, if we weren't already primed by the first example, we would say, well, 9 is cheap, 99 is stupid and ridiculous, 19 is just fine. The $99 bottle of wine is not meant to be sold. It's an anchor. It's there to make the $19 bottle look more reasonable. So if it's 9 or 19, we buy the 9. If it's $9, $19, $99, we're more than likely to buy the $19 bottle of wine. So by having the bottle that's not meant to be sold, we're spending $10 more per transaction. Now, the other side of that is the decoy effect. Still three options, but on the decoy effect, the goal is to get the person to buy the third option. Now, typically, the most common example I'll share, you'll see this is going to be at the movie theaters. You go to the movies, you buy some popcorn. You'll say, I'll have a medium popcorn. And the employee at the movie theater says, Paul, for 25 cents more, you can get a large. Oh, yeah, throw it in there. No big deal. So therefore, they're encouraging you to spend more money to get more items. Typically, the decoy is used when the cost of goods are a lot less. It costs less to make that product, such as popcorn, a digital subscription, and therefore you get a person to spend a little extra money to have a little extra product.
So this is fascinating. I can walk out on this all day long. But one thing that you touched on is this idea of future self. And a friend of mine that I've had on the podcast, Hal Hirschfield, who's a professor out at the Anderson School at UCLA, wrote a book about this, like your future self. And the idea is how can we think of ourselves not today, but obviously in the future, and treat that person better than we normally would. Does your work revolve around that idea as well? Because like you had mentioned, like it's interesting, Paul, you said that about spending, because obviously that's my realm of work and trying to help people find harmony between taking care of their future self and still being able to live, the lifestyle they want today, especially for parents who have, lots of kids like myself. Because that's the one thing I hear from parents all the time is the struggle to live the way that you want to today, especially over these last 5 years, because we've seen this bout of inflation that's sticky and is increasing, and we've definitely found out people hate inflation.
Well, so the ways that we could, achieve our future self is to have clear, defined goals and benchmarks. So let's use that New Year's resolution, lose 60 pounds kind of goal. Let's say it's January 1st. We're going to say I'm going to lose 60 pounds in January. Not going to happen, right? It's just, you're not going to lose 2 pounds a day for the next month. So what is a more achievable goal? We look at SMART goals. SMART being an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. The specific goal is we want to lose maybe 12 pounds. That's more achievable than 60. Now, we make it measurable. 12 is the goal, but over what time? So maybe the course of a year. If you lose 12 pounds over the next 12 months, that's going to be 1 pound a month. That's a little more sustainable. It's probably also attainable. So, but how do we lose 12 pounds over 12 months? If we were to join 2 gyms today, change our diet tomorrow, we're probably going to burn out by day 3. It's too disruptive to our everyday quality of life, our norms, our current self-identity. So therefore, what we do is we say we're going to go to the gym once a week for the next 3 weeks. We're going to change our diet once a day starting on week 4. We're going to go to the gym twice a week starting on week 6. You gradually keep it in where it's sustainable, but you don't keep adding to it where it becomes unsustainable. You integrate it into your current quality of life. So let's say that you really want to lose some weight. And the exercise bike is in the spare bedroom or it's in the garage, but you just don't want to go there. But you like to read. Well, then, Velcro your favorite book to the bike. So that way you only read it when you're pedaling. And therefore you're combining something that is positive and something that is negative, and you're making it a little more experiential for yourself. But when it comes to, future self economically, cash is the way to go. If every time we swipe that credit card or sign a check, or use Apple Pay or some variation of or digital payment method, it's not real money. We don't feel it. We don't touch it. It's fake, and therefore we don't see it as actual money coming out of our account. It's just digital credit.
It's frictionless.
Yes, it's frictionless. So if we use cash, we are likely to spend less money.
That's fascinating. So if I bring this back, because I know before we hit record, there was one personal example I wanted to use, and knowing my wife Teresa, she'll probably listen to this, but it doesn't matter if you're husband, wife, partner. I've heard this many times from many different people, and it kind of goes where somebody comes home and they say, I got all this stuff, and I'm like, well, how much did you spend? Well, I saved $500. And I'm like, well, how much did you spend? Well, I saved 50%. So does that mean you spent $1,000? And the answer, well, yes, but I saved 50%. It could have been twice as much. It could have been a lot more, but I saved this amount. So how does this, I'll call it like addiction with savings, kind of work into this as far as like retail therapy as well? And I do want to come back to one of the things that you noted in the article, and I'll make sure I put that in a link in the show notes to that, is like shopping has the potential to become addictive. And so like, what are some of the signs of that?
I'll talk through the savings first. And there's several behavioral constructs that apply here, but I'll talk through 2. Number 1 is going to be loss aversion, meaning that we as humans place more emphasis on losses than on gains. And an example would be if I said, Paul, here is $5, you're probably going to be happy, excited to get $5. But if I said, Paul, here's a bill or an invoice for $5, now you're mad. Like, what am I paying $5 for? Your emotional reaction to the having to pay $5 will be greater than the emotional reaction to gaining $5. So we focus on things that are lost. Now, we're not losing if we're saving, but we're reframing it. This is now the second part. This is message framing or priming. We're priming the consumer or the human to believe that it is a positive thing. So if we were to use an app or a membership at Costco or Sam's Club, we are spending money, but we as the business don't want to be showing the customer that they're spending money. If you go into your Amazon account and you go to your orders and then you look at all your order history, you click on the order history. It's not, you look on, let's say we purchased, a pen, and you look at the pen, all the information for shipping, the price is not going to be there. You have to click into the item, click on view invoice. We want to hide the price as much as possible because at a very high level, there's 2 purchases, utilitarian and experiential. The moment the purchase becomes transactional, it's no longer experiential. So we want to keep the customer away from thinking that it's an actual purchase. So we frame things as you save this much money by being here, and therefore consumers will appreciate it and say, hey, I saved it. So we want to frame it as positive as possible and keep the consumer away from thinking that they spent money.
Okay.
And then you answer the question about the addiction. is that
Yeah, that's
we
probably a
like
bigger one.
yeah. We like to have stuff, use stuff, get stuff, share stuff, but we don't like to buy stuff. But the act of actually getting something new and shiny is fun. It's exciting. If we buy a new phone, whether you're an Apple fan, an Android fan, or something else, you have that phone shipped to you or you pick it up from the store, you just paid $1,000. But in that moment, you don't feel like you spent $1,000 because you paid $60 and now you pay a payment plan for the next 2 years. So we're reducing the pain of paying. But also, as you open that box, and let's talk through that box real quick. So you open that box, and the box opens slowly. The box opens slowly on purpose because with that little friction, the suction, it's designed like that to give delayed gratification. So you're enjoying the moment longer. And as you're excited, as you open that box and you see that shiny new phone, you need to peel back that plastic. In that moment, you are significantly more likely to buy from that brand again from the unboxing experience. So when you open that phone and you're playing with it, you feel like you have a new toy, new excitement, and something to play with. It's distracting from anxiety or negative things in your life, and we don't see it as a purchase. So therefore, we want to replicate that high over and over again. It's very similar to someone who is addicted to, say, alcohol or narcotics. They're trying to chase the high they got the previous time or the first time they tried that item, and then we're trying to replicate that with shopping as well.
Is there any correlation between the amount that you're spending versus that level of high or feeling that you get emotionally? So for example, like going back to like the bottle of wine example that you use, like the 99, the 19, and the 9, is there some kind of emotional sensory trigger? I don't know if that's even the right way to describe that if you buy one of those, it feeds that addiction more so, like the $19 bottle versus the $9 versus the 99. Is there data there that says there's a correlation or between the amount you pay versus the high that you get? I don't know if I phrased that right, Michael.
You are. You're good. And so the short answer is yes, with an asterisk. It comes down to the scenario, the environment, or with the product or industry that the consumer is buying in. And I'll give an example like this. Let's say you're getting quotes for some landscaping for your house. You have a landscaping quote. You have 3 landscaping quotes. One's $100, one's $1,000, and one's $1,200. What do we say about the $100 quote?
Too cheap.
Right. It's like, what's wrong with it? It doesn't match the other ones. Now, economically, like, hell yeah, like let's spend $100. Let's not waste another $1,000 if we don't have to. But our mind tells us something's wrong with it. So we feel better about buying the more expensive item because it feels safer. And so therefore we're not chasing so much a high, but we're chasing the emotional safety and security that we're buying the right item.
Is there maybe the phrase tack onto that or phrase my first question, I feel like I stumbled over it differently, is how is it the more that you pay, does that high last longer? So for example, I go out and buy, well, it could be a phone now because a freaking phone is $1,000. But if you go out and buy a new car, like that's a huge purchase, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even 100,000 with some of the SUVs that people drive these days. Like how long does that new car feeling last, I guess? And I know we're probably generalizing here, but maybe there's data that says, no, typically it lasts this long before people start, having potential buyer's remorse or like, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next car.
I don't know offhand. I know there are several studies similar to what we're discussing right now, but I can talk about it in another way. And I look at it like this. The more that the consumer is being nickeled and dimed, the less, the shorter the lifespan of that positive experience. Let's look at it like this. You buy I'll give 2 examples. You buy a car. First off, I think right now the average cost of a car in the US is $46,000 and changed at the time of this recording.
Yep.
Something like that. So if we don't go car shopping with, hey, Paul, I'm interested in the car you have on your lot. My budget is $46,000. Most people do not go to the car lot like that. And we go with, hey, Paul, my budget is $427 per month. Just doesn't matter what it is. Just get it to $427 per month. We focus on reducing the pain of paying. We know it's attainable to be $399 per month, $350 per month, $238 per month, whatever our monthly budget is. That's how we allocate. That's why we see higher interest rates and payments that go for 84 months and beyond 96 months, because the consumers don't care so much about the length; they care about making it attainable. But the other side of that is, let's say we go to airline shopping. Now, if you were to shop for an airline ticket from Delta, United, JetBlue, you'll pay, let's just say, $350 for a ticket. But you're interested in a lower cost fare. So you go to maybe some budget airlines like Frontier or Spirit. And let's pick on Spirit Airlines for a moment. As you're buying through that experience, you're paying, $30 for a seat. Okay, next screen. $20 for checked baggage. Okay, next screen. $15 to choose my location in the aircraft, my seat. $6 for a beverage. All these different things are being nickel and dimed. Now, you'll see that a lot of these budget airlines are going away from that model, because here's why. When the consumer begins and they're in that journey of being nickel and dimed, the consumer is significantly more likely to continue that journey, but they're less likely to return to that brand in the future. So if we want return customers, we want to reduce the nickeling and diming. But if it's just a one-time purchase, therefore nickeling and diming might work. However, eventually we're going to run out of customers.
That's really interesting, because we had that dilemma back in February when we were going on our kids' spring break trip or midwinter break trip. And we're pretty loyal for Delta, obviously, because we live here in Metro Detroit. But we flew Spirit for the first time because it was literally half the cost. And so it's been an interesting thought for me as to how long that high normally lasts. Kind of to pivot, and one of the last topics I wanted to bring up is how does social media play into this? I know I've talked a lot about this over the last almost 4 years I've had the show, but you talked about, and I know this data very well, as far as the loss aversion, people get more upset losing than they do in gaining. And there's a lot of studies that show that with portfolio performance. But one of the things that drives, I think, people nuts is that when they see their next door neighbor pull in with that new car, or they're on Instagram and they see their friend on that, expensive vacation, and it's well, how come that's not me? How does that factor into kind of the topics we've been talking about when it comes to this retail therapy and the psychological aspects of spending money?
If there's only two things that the listeners and viewers get from this session, let it be this. Number two, the most persuasive thing we can do is show that other people are doing it too. If other people aren't buying it, using it, eating it, drinking it, etc., it's less desirable. But if other people are doing it, we want to do it too. That's part of the addiction as well. We want to, for lack of a better term, keeping up with the Joneses. It's social status. So social status is a large driver of decision making, because we're also buying items based upon how other people might believe who we are. So let's talk about clothing. We buy clothing because they match certain trends. Clothing is designed to protect us from the elements. That is the utilitarian reason we wear clothing. But we wear the latest trends in fashion because we don't want to look like we're dated 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We want to keep up with everyone else, and we want to look good. But why do we want to look good? It builds our confidence. So we're chasing these emotional factors to say, I need more confidence. I want to look good. I want to be respected because I look like I am current with the times. And that could be the vehicle we drive. But in reality, the person who's driving a 30-year-old vehicle might have a lot more savings than the person who has the 2025 newest vehicle, because they might look at it, financially different to save money. Mm-hmm. But on the contrary, it's all subjective. That person with the 30-year-old vehicle might be struggling financially, and vice versa. So it's all subjective. And to know that's important to focus on what only we can control. We can't control what our neighbors buy, what they use, but we can control what we do. We can't fix yesterday, but we can fix tomorrow.
So, Mike, how does one get involved with this as a career and professor in research and psychology of all this? How did you get into this space?
I came into it by accident. So let me give a little disclaimer about the industry and I'll talk how I got here. The technical name of the field is it's consumer psychology, but really it's behavioral economics. It's the study of, human decision making with finances and purchases. Most people that work in this field working on improving people's lives in healthcare. How do we eat better? How do we be healthier? How do we walk more steps per day, et cetera, et cetera. More of like the evil empire on the dark side, using it for consumerism. I know it is what it is. But how I got here was sort of by accident. I started as a teenage entrepreneur and my first business when I was 13, but around 15, 16, I would kind of like watch how consumers would like choose one item over the other. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Had no idea there was an industry for it or a study for it. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I went to college, studied, business, marketing. You take a social psychology course, a psychology course, social science course. And then you start seeing how the overlap or the Venn diagram of marketing and social sciences applies. Like, okay. And the rabbit hole goes from there. So from undergrad, master's, PhD, and now I'm stuck. So it is what it is.
So what are the like types of classes that you teach at UNC Pembroke, and like what are the things that you're trying to get across to your students? Because it's still a fairly new field, right? I mean, behavioral finance, Richard Thaler, it's 30, 40 years old now.
That's correct. So the classes that I teach are consumer behavior, services marketing, principles of marketing. The consumer behavior class talks about a lot of things that we talked today. How do we apply those behavioral constructs to consumer decision makings, influencing people to say yes or to buy certain things or engage with the brand how we want them to engage, or matching our experiences to the normal behavior. We don't want to change behavior. We want to match their or bring it to their. It's easier to move the product to the consumer than move the consumer to the product. In the services marketing class, that's an MBA class, that's where we're focusing on how do we focus on the service of the product. So we might buy an iPhone, but then we're buying subscriptions thereafter. We might buy a car, but then now we're offering oil changes and tire rotations. So how do we sell services or provide services on a product or add a product to a service, expanding the customer lifetime value. And then my primary takeaway for undergrad students is to not focus so much on the degree you receive, but the information you learn and how can you make an impact in your future employer.
Well, that is extremely insightful, and I could go on forever, or for at least another hour or so. But I know I only have you for a finite period of time. So usually, I didn't ask you if you have kids. Do you have kids?
I do not. I am the kid. My office is decorated in Lego. Yeah, I'm just a big child.
So let me ask you this as a closing question. What is the best thing about being a marketing professor?
The best. Okay, so I'll answer that in two ways.
You can. I was gonna say there's no. You can answer whatever way you want. How many directions you want to go in.
On campus, I get to help shape young adults and help guide their careers. And the things, Paul, you and I are older. We've made mistakes. We've had our successes. We can share those with the next generation, right? Or the two generations, whatever the math works out to be. But we can share those with the young adults, right? So we don't make those mistakes like we did. But out in the world of my own behavior, my own shopping, I get to say like, oh, that's interesting. That's awesome. So, one day I'm at IKEA, and the item I'm looking for is no longer available. And it doesn't say out of stock, unavailable, back ordered, see sales associate. It says oversold. And I'm like, that's genius. Why didn't I think of that? Oversold is awesome because you're showing that other people are buying it and you're not blaming the company, you're blaming the other customers. Things like that I come across, not daily, but often I get to say, all right, I love what I do.
That is awesome. So where can people find more about your work in the types of things that you're involved with? Like where's the best place to send people to?
That's a great question. People can contact me two ways. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/M as in Michael, Barbera as in my last name, USA as in the country.
I'll make sure I'll put a link into your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
I appreciate that. And if anybody wants to connect with me, they can email me anytime. Mike@clicksuasion.com is the best email, CLICKSUASION.com. I check that more often than my university email. Be a faster response time. And yeah, the worst thing I'll say is I have no idea and try to point you in the best possible direction.
Well, Mike, I greatly appreciate all your insights, and I'm sure we'll have more to talk about here in the future as well. But I can't thank you enough for being on the show for the first time. And like I just said, I'm sure you'll be back on again.
The pleasure's all mine.
Thanks, Mike. The thing I really love about having experts on the show like Dr. Mike Barbera is to be able to deep dive into this combining of both worlds that I live in, that we all live in, this emotional world and this financial world, and how the two have so many interconnections. I've said this before. A lot of people think that their financial life is just their financial life and their emotional life or personal life is just that. But the two intersect and interweave with each other day in and day out. And so, a few takeaways from my conversation with Mike is that, this Costco therapy effect that we talked about, it's not like we're just buying bulk toilet paper. We're chasing the new and shiny, almost distraction from daily stress. And that's where shopping can become a source of joy and comfort, and versus just the, I got to have this. The other thing I want to make note of is, again, this emotional spending versus rational spending. I think I gave the example, I have this often with my kids and my wife, Teresa, is like, they go to the store and they're like, oh my gosh, I saved $100. Well, how much did you spend? Well, I saved 50%. Well, how much did you spend? Well, I can do the math, and they spent $200. And so this is an absolute battle. Brands, companies know they have this psychological, they have this research data that Mike was bringing to the forefront, that other experts on the show have brought to us, where these companies know how to market to us. They know how to trip our triggers, to pull our levers, to be able to get us to spend more money, whether it's changing things in different aisles and whatnot, the eye levels, things of that nature. I think one of the points that Mike really honed on to is this clever psychology, like anchoring, to make a $19 bottle of wine feel like a deal compared to the $99 one right beside it. And I think one last thing I will point out, and we've had Hal Hirschfield on the show as well, talking about future self, but really, I think our spending is heavily influenced by social status and taking care of ourself today versus trying to do our future self a favor. Now that you've made it to the end of another great conversation, are you looking for more? If so, head over to tamacapital.com, where you will find all of our conversations. Use the search feature to find the topic or guest you would love to learn more about. Also, don't forget to make someone else's day by sharing our show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.